This work of fiction is intended for mature audiences. It contains themes of psychological horror and violence presented in a restrained manner. All characters and events are entirely fictional. The narrative is not intended to glorify or encourage harmful behavior.
I've been blind since the moment I entered this world. My mother told me that even in the delivery room, the nurses knew. Those eyes, one of them whispered, not realizing she could hear. They look vacant. They were right, of course. My eyes don't perceive light or color, but I've spent my life sensing other things I would give anything to unsee. It started when I was 6. That's the first time I remember the voices. At first, I thought they were just my imagination, the way children create stories of monsters lurking in the dark. Only my monsters weren't in my closet. They were at the edge of my bed, murmuring in tones too soft for anyone else to hear, yet sharp enough to carve into my mind. "Emily," they called. "Emily, we're here. Do you sense us?" Sense them, that was the irony. No, I didn't see them, but I felt them. Their voices carried a weight, like a cold hand resting against the back of my neck. Some were kind, or at least they pretended to be. They'd murmur soft things, hints of places they had been, or things they had left behind. But others weren't kind at all. I quickly learned not to respond. Engaging with them gave them strength, and strength could be dangerous. My mother used to find me curled up in the corner of my room, hugging my knees and rocking back and forth, humming as loudly as I could, anything to block them out. "Emily, sweetheart, what's wrong?" she'd ask, concern mixing with exhaustion. "Nothing, Mom," I'd lie. "Just a bad dream." But they weren't dreams, and they didn't vanish when the sun rose. By the time I turned 10, I had learned to distinguish between the living and the departed. The departed carried no breath, no scent of soap or perfume, no rustling of fabric, just voices that sliced through the silence like a blade through paper, beckoning me. I'm 22 now, and I've adapted to the voices, as much as one can anyway. I follow one rule: ignore them unless they say something vital. Sometimes they're desperate to communicate with the living. Sometimes they're lonely. And sometimes they deceive. Tonight, I'm curled up in my studio apartment, listening to the low hum of the radiator and the rhythmic patter of rain against the windows. My fingers skim the raised dots of the book I'm reading, focusing on the story rather than the persistent feeling that someone is watching me. It's familiar, a sensation I've learned to disregard. The departed don't rest, and they're always watching, always near. Then I hear it, a voice deep and low, barely more than a murmur. "Emily Shadowseer." In shock, I stiffen. They don't usually say my last name. That's very unusual, even for them. "Who are you?" I ask, breaking my own rule. The words escape before I can stop them. A pause, a long one. Then it speaks. "A friend?" I've heard that before. It's never true. "What do you want?" I ask, keeping my tone steady despite my trembling hands. Another pause, then the words. "To warn you." Warn me about what? "She's coming." My pulse quickens. "Who's coming?" Silence. Then the air thickens, and the temperature drops sharply. My breath fogs, and the familiar scent of my lavender candle is replaced by something sharp, metallic, and familiar. I know this feeling. It's something beyond a simple presence. It's not just a spirit. It's something darker, more intent, more calculated. "Leave," I say, forcing my voice to remain firm. "You're not welcome here." The presence lingers, then it laughs, the sound fractured and jagged, sending a chill through me. "She's coming, Emily, and when she arrives, you'll wish you were blind to more than just the light." Then it vanishes. The air lifts, warmth returns, and the lavender scent creeps back in. But I am left shaking, gripping my book so tightly that the pages crumple. I don't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every murmur of the radiator feels like an omen of something dark and dreadful. And deep down, I know the voice wasn't lying to me. She is coming. Someone's coming. And they're bringing darkness and bad intent with them. The next morning, everything felt different. It wasn't tangible. The rain still pattered against my window, and the distant hum of the city below remained the same. But there was something in the air, a presence that made the tiny hairs on my arms stand at attention. I moved through my morning routine, forcing myself to act normal. Toast, coffee, a podcast I couldn't focus on. But even the warmth of the mug in my hands did little to banish the cold weight pressing on my chest. Then, the voice returned. Emily. I nearly dropped my coffee. The voice wasn't external this time. It was inside my mind, a presence buzzing against my thoughts like organized static. Who are you? I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. My words bounced off the walls of my empty apartment, hollow and searching. A pause. Then it said, a warning? She's closer than you think. My grip on the coffee mug tightened. I don't know who you're talking about. Stop playing games and just let me be. The voice gave a soft, almost amused response. You don't need to know who, just that she's here. And then, just as quickly as it came, it was gone, leaving behind an oppressive silence that felt more overwhelming than words. I tried to push the unease aside, convincing myself it was just my imagination. But the words clung to me like a stubborn shadow. She's here. The voice had said she, but it hadn't said what she wanted. By the time I left for work, I felt the sun had managed to break through the dense clouds, warming my face as I stepped outside. It did little to lift the weight pressing down on me. I took the subway as I always did, relying on my cane to navigate the labyrinth of people, platforms, and tunnels. The usual din of commuters surrounded me, a chaotic symphony of footsteps, hurried conversations, and the occasional screech of a departing train. Then, I felt it again. That presence. A chill crawled up my spine, the air around me feeling suddenly too thick, too still, to breathe. Emily Shadowseer, it's me. This time, the whisper was different. It was close, too close. I froze in place, gripping my cane as the rush of people moved past me. The voice didn't echo through my mind this time. It was here, in the air around me. Who are you? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the noise of the station. Turn around, it said. Everything in me screamed not to, but curiosity, or something deeper, compelled me. Slowly I turned. There was nothing, just the usual chaos of the subway station. Hurried commuters, a musician strumming a guitar, a vendor advertising hot pretzels. But the sensation of being watched didn't fade. If anything, it intensified. You won't feel her yet, the voice murmured, but she sees you. I didn't wait to hear more. I pushed through the crowd, desperate to escape the suffocating presence pressing against me. By the time I surfaced onto the city streets, the noise and bustle were almost a comfort, a safe haven. The feeling of being watched, however, never left. By the time I arrived at my job as a transcriptional, I had convinced myself it was all in my head. Almost. The day passed in a blur of keystrokes and half-heard conversations, but the unease clung to me, an unshakable weight in the back of my mind. It wasn't until I returned home that the weight became unbearable. The moment I stepped into my apartment, I knew something was wrong. The air was dense, stagnant, carrying an unnatural stillness. My usual sanctuary felt foreign, hostile. Then, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. The air crackled with unseen energy, the oppressive silence heavier than before. Welcome home, Emily. The voice wasn't in my head this time. It was real, tangible, close. Who are you? I forced myself to ask, my voice unsteady. With a low, breathy chuckle, she said, "You'll find out soon enough." A chill ran down my spine as something brushed past me, something unseen but undeniably present. My cane slipped from my grasp, clattering onto the floor. I stumbled backward, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the presence vanished. The air lightened, the silence broke, and my apartment returned to normal. But I knew better than to believe it was over. The voice had warned me. She was here now, and she wasn't leaving. Sleep eluded me for the next 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, a presence loomed at the edge of my awareness. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was tangible, a weight pressing down on my chest. I considered leaving, packing a bag and running. But where could I go? Whatever this was, it wasn't tied to my apartment. It was bound to me. By the 3rd night, exhaustion had taken its toll. My limbs ached, and every sound felt amplified, every whisper of movement a potential threat. I sat in the middle of my living room, the sound of a small tea light flickering in front of me, its flame making the sounds of dancing, but it was not enough to hold back the darkness pressing in. Then I heard it, the knock, 3 sharp raps on my front door. They echoed through the apartment, louder than they should have been. My breath caught in my throat. It was nearly midnight. No one I knew would come at this hour. "Emily Shadowseer," a voice called, muffled but clear. It was a woman's voice, steady, yet laced with something unlikable, yet calm. Not quite warmth, not quite menace. I hesitated, my pulse a frantic rhythm in my ears. My cane was just out of reach, but something told me movement would betray my presence. "Emily," the voice repeated, firmer this time. "I know you're there. Open the door, now." "Who are you?" I called back, my voice trembling from fear. A pause. Then, "I'm a friend. I'm here to help you." That was enough to make me stand, my legs unsteady beneath me. "I don't need help," I said, inching toward the door. "You have the wrong person." "No," she replied, her voice softening. "I have the right person. You've been marked, Emily, and if you don't let me in, she will." My hand hovered over the deadbolt, every nerve screaming at me to stop. But something in her words, something in the way she said them, cut through my fear. I turned the lock and opened the door. I sensed she stood just beyond the threshold, alert and composed. Though I couldn't see her, I felt her presence, strong, focused, determined. "Who are you?" I asked again, my fingers gripping the edge of the door. She stepped inside without hesitation. "Call me Cassandra," she said, gliding right past me into the living room. I shut the door, my heart pounding. "What do you want?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard her set something down on the coffee table, a bag or pouch. "Do you know what you are?" she asked, her voice calm yet pointed. I frowned. I don't understand." "You've been touched by the other side," she said. "That's why you hear them, why they're drawn to you. But it's also why you're vulnerable." I took a step back. "I didn't ask for this." "None of us do," she said, softer now. "But it's not about what you want. It's about what you are. And right now, what you are is in grave danger." Her words lingered in the air like smoke. I struggled to process them, but a more pressing question clawed its way to the surface. "Who is she?" I asked. "The one who's coming for me?" Cassandra sighed, as if she had been dreading this question. "A shadow. A cunning, unstoppable predator. She's been searching for someone like you for a very, very long time." "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who can see her for what she is," Cassandra said. And if she takes you, she'll never be stopped. A cold chill slithered down my spine, and the room seemed to grow still. The shadows in the corners of the apartment felt deeper, as if something lurked just beyond reach, listening, waiting. "What do we do?" I asked, my scared voice barely above a whisper. Cassandra's voice hardened. "We prepare. But you need to understand something, Emily. If you're not willing to face her, to fight back, then none of us stand a chance." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down on me. I didn't know if I was ready to fight, but I knew one thing for certain. I didn't have a choice. The air in my apartment felt heavier than before, thick with something unseen. Cassandra moved with purpose, her every motion calculated. She pulled a bundle of smelly herbs from her bag, lighting them and murmuring words in a language I didn't recognize. The sharp scent of the smoke permeated through the room, but it did little to ease the tension tightening around me. "Stay near the light," Cassandra instructed, her voice firm. "She thrives in the darkness. If she pulls you in, it'll be harder to fight back." I nodded, though I wasn't sure she was looking at me. My hands gripped my cane, the wood cool beneath my fingertips. The shadows at the corners of the room seemed to shift, to ripple like something was moving beneath them. Then it began. A low, guttural growl vibrated through the air. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once, sinking into my bones. A sharp pain built behind my eyes, forcing me to squeeze them shut. "Emily?" Cassandra's voice cut through the haze. "Focus. Don't let her in." I tried to respond, but the air in the room turned ice cold. The warmth of the tea light barely reached my skin. The shadows surged forward, coiling like living tentacles, reaching for me. Then I heard her voice. "Emily." It was smooth, almost soothing, but laced with something else, something with evil intent. "You've been so very difficult to find." I staggered back, my legs hitting the couch. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, though my voice trembled. A low chuckle. "What I've always wanted, a doorway." Before I could process her words, she lunged. Cassandra shouted something, and the bundle of herbs let off a blast of heat. The shadows recoiled, a shriek piercing the air, but the sound wasn't just noise. It was a force, slamming into me, knocking the air from my lungs. "Emily!" Cassandra shouted. "Take this!" She pressed something into my hand, a smooth stone cool to the touch. The moment my fingers closed around it, a living warmth spread up my arm, cutting through the cold. "I can't," I gasped, panic gripping my chest. "I'm not strong enough." "You are," Cassandra insisted. "You've always been." The shadows twisted and lashed out, and then I saw them. At first, I thought they were memories, flickering images of people, places, events I didn't recognize. But as they sharpened, I realized these images weren't mine. They were hers. I saw her standing at the edge of a vast abyss, her hands reaching toward it. I saw her in a dimly lit room, whispering to unseen figures. And then I saw her standing over me, her expression unreadable. "You're mine," she whispered, her voice wrapping around my thoughts. "You've always been mine." And then it hit me, a revelation so horrifying it nearly shattered me. She wasn't just hunting me, she was trying to return to me. Then her darkness closed in on me, but the stone in my hand burned brighter, cutting through it. Cassandra's voice called to me, anchoring me to the present. "You can break free, Emily," she begged. "Fight her!" But I couldn't. The truth was too heavy, too much. I wasn't just being pursued. I was the only reason she existed at all. Her shadow surged one final time, swallowing me whole. And then, deathly silence, and I became hers. The last words I ever heard were, "Emily Shadowseer, is finally home.
Hello, my Nightmare Obsession fans. We hope you loved this story and were almost frightened to death, left wanting even more. If so, please share video and our channel link with friends and family and ask them to subscribe, like, comment, and share with their friends and family too. We really want to create more nightmarish horror stories for you. So please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel now. We would really appreciate it. Thanks so much.